Genshin Impact has released 29 limited 5 stars since its release as of version 4.2. Among these, there are some universally agreed top tier units, like Kazuha. Today, however, we'll be going over what I think are objectively the worst limited 5 stars in the game. Before we get into this, however, it is a goal of mine to hit 2,000 subscribers, so if at any point through the video you are entertained, I would really appreciate if you left a like and subscribed. Thank you. We all know we're going to be annoying the snowflakes with this one, so our first character is from an element that also resembles one, and that is going to be our cryo character Eula, who is the best physical DPS in the game, but simultaneously one of the worst 5-star DPS in the game. Kinda like being invited to a Mr. Beast challenge video, but then being knocked out in the first round. Winning, but also losing at the same time type beat. So, what makes Eula bad? A better question is, what doesn't? Okay. On a real note though, she has a very nice art. I mean damage. Hitting very high newts at the end of her burst. But this burst is where a lot of her problems come in. So if you don't know how Eula burst works, let me quickly explain it to you. You cast her ult, which does a very big slash of AoE cryo damage, and then you have about 7 seconds to hit enemies with as many normal attacks and E skills as you possibly can to stack up her Lightfall sword, which does a reasonable sized AoE explosion of physical damage. Keeping in mind, this burst is most of Eula's damage, Eula's teams don't have sources of grouping against large hordes of enemies, so if they move out of your ult range, time to restart your chamber. If your burst misses a bunch of crits so you don't clear in time to restart your chamber. If your parents burst into your room telling you to pause the game as he hasn't come for dinner yet and you're frantically trying to explain to them that you can't pause it, time to restart the chamber. So maybe Eula isn't the best against AoE enemies. How about against bosses? A lot of bosses have high physical resistance, on top of the fact a large amount of bosses over time have immunity phases or seem to fly extremely high in the sky for some reason, so any excess damage you do from Eula's burst becomes pointless, or well, you have a small burst window to hit the boss and the boss decided it wanted to go to the moon. You can switch off to make Eula's burst explode prematurely, but that makes you lose out on a lot of damage, and we don't like doing that here. On top of that, Eula's burst is an 80 cost, which means you have to run a whole lot of ER substats and you need a battery just for her to get by. This makes one of her best teammates Raiden as Superconduct, the extra burst damage bonus, and being a battery, but it gets to a point where it feels like you're playing a Raiden team plus Eula instead of a Eula team, and you might as well run Raiden Hyper Carry or Raiden National instead. Of course you can 36 star with Eula, but you're not really going to be doing that too often without constellations or breaking a mouse or two. But hey, a small price to pay to be a Eula main, right? Next on the list we have Klee. Yes, not even children are safe from my scrutiny, especially not this one, because she is a well-known terrorist into that. There are so many jokes I want to make about that, but I'll stick to making them in the Discord for now, so I'm not demonetized. Link in the description, of course. Klee is a pyro on-field catalyst DPS with some of the slowest attack strings in the game, and there are only 3 different animations in the string. Sure, they are cute to watch, but you sure won't be when you look in the mirror and realize you have aged 60 years by the end of them. To circumvent this, people have been jump cancelling, which will still net you mediocre damage, but more damage than before. Honestly, if you're gonna take the time to cancel, please just play Hu Tao, who is one of the highest single target DPS in the game and can actually vape her attacks, unlikely, because she simply applies so much pyro due to her ridiculously high frequency of pyro applications on her E-bombs or her normal attacks. Though to be honest, now I kinda wanna use her to make my Farina vape every hit. And see how that goes when Farina finally releases tomorrow. This forces you to run Klee in mono pyro, which I personally have 36 stars with, just for the fun of it. This is a team containing Xiangling, Bennett and Kazuha, which any character paired with those three will clear literally any content in the game anyway, unless, I don't know, it's pyro damage immune. They are literally so broken. Plus, if you ran a Hydro character, for instance, like Child or Ayato, then you could start to vape his and Xiangling's hits, resulting in more damage instead of just running a mono pyro team, and not any mono pyro team running Klee. On top of that, her burst isn't anything of note, or at least I don't think it is. I still don't know what it does till this day, but hey, it doesn't seem that special anyway. The animation on it is ridiculously long, so sometimes it actually feels like my runs are slower because I took the time to use it, and I don't have all day. I have mint to collect and vast open world to stare at. Finally, we have Albedo. I kept his name out my mouth for a while now, as me and a friend made a deal that I'll keep her C6 Albedo out of my mouth if she keeps my C6 Yolan out of hers. Pringle, I am so sorry if you see this. I hope you overlook it. Only if his kit was as great as his lore, then he would put literally every other character to shame. 1 second clear times and everything. Albedo's lore is so in-depth and entertaining to read about, and the events of it are great. Sadly, this is the opposite for his kit, sprouting some of the most bland gameplay in the whole of Genshin. All Albedo does is put down his E, which only needs refreshing every 20 seconds or so. This does geo damage alongside your active character when you hit an enemy at intervals of 2.5 seconds. This damage isn't that high, and it isn't AoE either. It really is only that great in mono geo teams where it can be buffed by Goro, of course, or Geo Resonance. The middle of Albedo's E is a flower which can pick you up into the air, and if you don't notice it, well, it will make itself get noticed, and it actually gets quite annoying at times. His E scales on defense, whilst his burst scales on his attack. The treacherous first year of Genshin split scaling as we will, and his burst gives 100 EM for some reason. This leads his burst to do no damage. The 100 EM does sound cool, however, Albedo tends to steal your character's reaction to create very sad and pathetic crystallized shields. And on top of that, there are a lot more ways to boost EM now in the game, with characters that will actually synergize with your team. Wow, surprising. This leaves Albedo being played in Mono Geo, where he does solid off-field damage. However, that is all he does in that team. No buffs, nothing. If another Geo or fielder comes to the game that does more damage or has any sort of buffs that buffs Geo, Albedo will probably be phased out of that team too. It's not looking good for my man. Lucky for him, they haven't released a new Geo 5 stars in almost 2 years, as Geo sucks, and we literally are now only getting Navia in 4.3. So depending on her kit, he might stick around for another 2 years or so, or she might be his deathbed. Who knows? With that being said, I hope you stick around for more of my videos. Let me know who you think is the worst limited 5-star down below in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Joelted out. Nyom!